Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session. It's great to see so many of you have joined us. We will get started in about 15 seconds. We'll just let a few more in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mid-Career Conversations. Today's session is titled Confidence Over Conformity: How to Lead and Avoid Facing Imposter Syndrome, featuring retail and brand strategy leader Jackie Staub. My name is Sonia Sichoria. I am York University's alumni career coach, and I will be your host today. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone in attendance today. Some of you may have attended our sessions in the past, and others may be attending your first mid-career conversation session. For those of you attending for the first time, Mid-Career Conversations features an alumni storyteller sharing their own journey, career expertise, and learnings. You will also have the opportunity to ask questions and join virtual breakout rooms to discuss your own unique journey and ambitions with other York alumni. Now, as this event is virtual, and since we are not all gathered in the same space, I recognize the following land acknowledgement might not necessarily be for the territory you are currently on. If this is the case, please take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory you are on, the current treaty holders. As a member of York University community, I recognize many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of York University. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Tkaronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation and the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. The Mid-Career Conversation series was created with alumni like you in mind. It is a special opportunity for us to come together as York alumni and share our stories and experiences. First, a little about Jackie. Jackie Staub is an accomplished executive in the global beauty and luxury industry, with a career spanning leadership roles at L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, and Coty. A York University alumna with a BA in economics, Jackie's work bridges commercial excellence with authentic leadership and speaks frequently on topics related to confidence, purpose, and challenging conformity in the workplace. We are grateful to have Jackie volunteering her time to be today's guest speaker. For today's conversation, our speaker will deliver a 20-minute talk. Then afterwards, we will take questions from you, our guests. As always, we ask that your comments be relevant and respectful. Feel free to use the chat now by entering where you are tuning in from. After the Q&A, we'll stop recording and move into breakout rooms for 10 minutes for the networking portion of the event, after which you will return to the final room for our final remarks. You are encouraged to have your video on so that we can see each other and for the storyteller to see you as well. As per Zoom meeting etiquette, we also ask that you stay on mute until the networking portion. Finally, please also consider editing your name on screen to match what you see on mine. We have first name, last name, pronouns, degree, and grad year. You can also do this by clicking rename in the Zoom menu. Now, I am very excited to welcome our speaker for today. Welcome, Jackie.
Hello, everybody. Just let me get a sec to help you with technology for a second so you guys can see me. Hello. And let me get this lovely PowerPoint presentation up for you today. Can everyone see my screen? I love engagement, and Sonia's here to moderate. I can't necessarily see all your
Yes.
comments. Wonderful. So I'll rely on you to talking to me. I will save a lot of questions until the end. But I'm Jackie Staub. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to York University for inviting me to be part of this incredible series. It's wonderful to be back with this community and reconnect with a place that shaped the start of my career journey as a BA in economics at York University. As I was preparing this talk, I thought about where some of you may be in your careers today, maybe mid-career, maybe leading teams, or thinking about what's next. And then I thought about what I would say if someone had told me back then that my path would take me from Toronto to London and to where I am now, which is New York City. Through powerful boardrooms and world-class launches and a big few leaps of faith, honestly, I probably would have never believed you if you would have told me. Even with a strong desire that I had to achieve at that point in time, I couldn't have imagined where my career would land and how much resilience it would take and how many times I needed to reinvent myself along the way. And yet, every step taught me something unexpected about leadership and confidence. I learned that true confidence isn't about being the loudest voice in the room, even though I can tell you I've tried. It's about trusting your own compass, even when the world around you is nudging you to blend in. It's about knowing your values, leaning into growth, and building the courage to act even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. So today, I want to share with you what that really looks like in practice, the lessons I've learned about leading authentically, embracing growth, and building confidence that lasts, because this isn't about my story, it's about giving you the tools and perspectives you can apply to your own career. So I want to start by reflecting on my own beginnings. My career truly started with a lengthy list of don'ts. I was told, don't study economics, it's too challenging, said by a very kind career university counselor. I was told, don't pursue marketing. That's not the path for an economics major, said many after I turned down an offer for the Ministry of Housing and Affairs in Canada after graduating. And finally, well, not finally, I heard, don't relocate to London. Why would you leave Canada? Said my well meaning father after our first few years of work. And even, don't go to university. It doesn't pay off, said very well-meaning people who hadn't had the chance to take the journey themselves. And yet every time someone told me don't, I chose to do it anyways. Not out of rebellion, but because a quiet voice within me insisted that if I didn't try, I would always wonder what might have been. So this brings me to the first truth about confidence. It blossoms when you choose to listen to your own instincts amidst the noise of other people's opinions. And that instinct to follow my own path is what carried me forward into opportunities. I never could have predicted moving across countries, working with global brands, and stepping into roles that challenged me in ways I had never imagined. It was those experiences when I embraced growth rather than just playing it safe that I started to truly understand what it really means to lead with confidence. So let me share how it all begins. I really love Taylor Swift, and so does my niece. I often refer to my first 10 years of my career as my marketing era. I graduated in 2001 here in Toronto, we're there in Toronto, and started out right in the heyday of advertising when it had big budgets and lots of money. The era of big ideas, big budgets, and learning how to fly. After a few years, I moved to the UK to work in-house with Procter and Gamble, which gave me a really solid foundation in training in marketing and brand management. From there, it started open doors. Opportunities across Europe, from Geneva to London, Paris and Zurich, and even Israel and the Dominican Republic, where I worked with Orange PLC, building brands across diverse cultures and markets. Looking back, it wasn't a straight line, but every move, every leap taught me something about adaptability, curiosity, and the quiet confidence that comes from starting over and learning something new. In 2011, I returned to Toronto, marking the start of what I'd like to call my beauty era. The chapter wasn't planned. At the time, my goal was actually to relocate into New York, which eventually I did in 2019, but life had other plans first. During this phase, I had the privilege of working with some of the most incredible holding companies of brands: L'Oreal, Coty, Estee Lauder, and held very high profile roles leading major launches like Gucci and Prada, and managing the number one makeup brand in Canada as general manager, and eventually shaping strategy for the entire luxury portfolio at L'Oreal. And when I look back at the full timeline, it may seem anything but linear. And that's because it wasn't. Each transition wasn't about chasing titles or climbing a straight ladder, it was about chasing growth. With every fresh start, my confidence grew, and so did the opportunities. Eventually, it all came together, not because I knew what I was doing, but because I kept proving myself. And I kept proving to myself that I could learn, adapt, and start again. So, if I had to sum it up, the thread that runs through all of my experiences comes down to three guiding principles. The first, intuition. I followed my gut, even when logic said no. The second, confidence. I trusted who I was, even when I didn't fit the mold. The third, courage. I took risk, even when the outcome was uncertain. And I love this little New York image on Wall Street that reminds me to be brave every day. And if you haven't gone to New York, I suggest that you visit and remind it for yourself. Listen, people will give you endless advice throughout your career and throughout your academic life, but only you can truly know what's right for you and what's in your path for you. And when you act on that inner sense, something beautiful and powerful happens. You stop feeling like an imposter because you're no longer performing someone else's version of success. You're leading your own. And those three principles of intuition, confidence, and courage aren't just abstract ideas. They're what helped me navigate moments of self doubt, uncertainty, and challenge. Which brings us to a word that you've probably heard a lot about lately. So let's pause for a quick minute and have a reality check around this. I'd like to poll the audience. Have you ever felt that you didn't belong or weren't qualified enough in a professional or academic setting? I think the poll is going to go up. I can't necessarily see it, Sonia, so I see it here. Please answer yes frequently, yes occasionally, or rarely. I'd love to see the results here. And Sonia, you can let me know when the results are in. Okay, I can see it here. Actually, funnily enough, the poll shows you here that yes, a lot of you have suffered from imposter syndrome, about 71% of you. I did a pre-read before this with the two lovely hosts behind the scenes, and one of them did and one of them didn't. But I'm not surprised to see a lot of you do. Now, listen, you may feel alone in this, but I'd like to ask a second poll question to you to kind of reset the stage. I want you to guess, what percentage of medical students do you think experience imposter syndrome? Can put your answer into the survey there, and I'll wait till they all pop up. 76 to 100%. Good guess, guys. Yeah, well, you may not be surprised now that I thought you may be surprised, but studies show that 50 to 60% of medical students actually suffer from imposter syndrome at some point. That's half of the room here on average. So if you felt it, you're in very good company. Here's the thing I've learned. Imposters' feelings don't show up when you're standing still. They show up when you're growing and you're stretching and you're stepping outside your comfort zone. So the next time you feel it creeping in, don't ask, why am I feeling like an imposter? Instead, ask, what's the new thing that I'm doing today that's actually stretching me? Because that's exactly where confidence lives. So now that we're framing what imposter feelings feel like and why they show up, the next question is, how do you work with them? And I think of this in three parts. First of all, awareness. Notice it. Many high achieving people feel the same way, so you're not alone. Secondly, impact. Understand it, because if you leave it unchecked, self doubt can slowly, grow it, stunt your growth, and increase your stress and cloud out all of your decisions. The third is overcoming it. And how do you overcome it? You start to reframe it. Start to see those feelings as a sign that you're stretching yourself, not that you're failing, which is so easy to do early in your career. Listen, when I was a university student, I learned a lesson from students who always got straight A's. There was one student that literally sat outside the professor's office to observe and learn. The lesson for me, when I asked him where was his source of wisdom, he said simply, if you want wisdom, sit at the door of it. That mindset stuck with me, and whenever I faced challenges, I sought out leaders I admired, paid attention to how they showed up, and learned from them. Over time, I realized that confidence doesn't come from never doubting yourself. It grows from continuing to learn, adapt, and lead in your own path, not someone else's. And speaking of learning from others, whenever I look at examples of the kind that grounded me in confidence, a few leaders stood out to me, some of which you may recognize. So I'm bringing them to the table to you, not only to learn from me, but to learn from others who have been in the same place. Let me start with one of them, Indra Nooyi. When I was working in PepsiCo for a contract role, I had the chance to sit in a meeting with Indra Nooyi. And for those who don't know her, she's a truly remarkable leader and was the president of PepsiCo and has been in many global forums, including those with the administration of the United States of America. She was never the loudest person in the room, but when she spoke, everyone listened. She would often say this, and I'm paraphrasing it, at the end of the day, don't forget who you are. Leave your crown at the door. And to me, that was confidence, not arrogance. It's the quiet conviction. And that's exactly how she showed up. If you haven't seen some of her videos online, I highly recommend and encourage you to do so. She's remarkable. Indra showed me that true confidence comes from preparation and clarity of values. When you know what you stand for, you don't need to raise your voice. Your ideas do the speaking for you. So here's Indra in her own words.
Hand up for the toughest assignments. Nobody notices you because you took something that's running well and kept it running well. But if you take on something that has got issues and you turned it around or fixed it, people go, hey, what's your name? So put your hands up for the toughest assignments. Finally, I'll say to you guys, don't forget your family, your friends, and your faith. That's my plea to you. At the end of the day, job can come today and go tomorrow. The only thing that stays with you is your family, your friends, and your faith. Without that, I'd be a nobody.
Indra reminded me that real confidence is grounded. It's about knowing who you are, not proving it. And that brings me to another leader who embodies that lesson in her own way. Someone who's built an empire by staying completely true to herself.
Hand up for the tough.
Martha Stewart. Oh, how we love her. One of the most interesting interviews I ever watched of hers was when someone asked her if she ever suffered from imposter syndrome. Her answer, well, you can see for yourself.
You ever experienced? I'm curious if you ever experienced imposter syndrome, and if not, what advice? Yeah. Oh. Okay. So can you give us advice on how to be like you? But
You shouldn't even know that. You shouldn't even know that exists. If you're an entrepreneur, you don't know that exists. You have to really take the reins and ride the horse. Somebody asked me once about breaking through the glass ceiling. I didn't even know what they were talking about. And I was a little embarrassed that I didn't know. It's about you being a strong and not too willful, but a strong self-possessed person that you have to be if you're going to be in business for yourself.
I remember thinking how refreshing that was. She's not saying she never doubted herself. She's saying that she never outsourced her worth to someone else's approval. That's the real trick. You can't feel like an imposter if you define your own playing field. And that idea of questioning the norm and defining your own path, that brings me to another voice I really admire, Adam Grant. Adam Grant is one of my favorite leaders and someone who truly embodies the power of original thought. He has this great line: the greatest originals are the ones who doubt by default. And here's a short clip that shows how he lived.
Long time I believed the saying, the mantra that comparison is the thief of joy. I don't believe it anymore. I think envy is the thief of joy. I think social comparison is invaluable. I think we have to look to other people for inspiration. I think we look to other people for learning, not just what am I capable of, but also how do I get there? I think where we run into problems is when we stop admiring those people and we start wanting what they have, or feeling like I should have gotten what they got. Long time
What I love about this idea is that it reframes doubt, not as a weakness, but as a tool. In my own career, especially working in innovation and brand building, I've seen that creativity always starts with a question. Confidence isn't about having every answer. It's about staying curious and curious enough to keep asking the right questions. It's not about the absence of doubt. It's the willingness to move through it. So after hearing from leaders like Indra, Martha, and Adam, I started thinking, what ties this all together? And funnily enough, the answer came to me in a bookstore I was at on Fifth Avenue the other day. I was in Barnes and Noble and of course, a publication came across my eyesight, which was the latest issue of the Harvard Business Review. The cover stopped me in my tracks. It showed a lion on the right-hand side, you can see it there, standing strong at a corporate desk with the headline, "A Playbook for Courageous Leadership." And I thought, yes, that's it. That's leadership. Think like a lion. Lions don't roar to prove that they're lions. They just know they are. So when you walk into a meeting, especially when you feel small or outnumbered, remember these 3 things as you plan your attack. The first, be observant of your presence. Own your space. Physically and intellectually, you have a lot to offer. Know that. Second, drive your perspective. The meeting isn't about proving you belong there. You already have a seat at the table. It's about delivering value. The third is preparation. Confidence is competence remembered under pressure. So we've talked about what confidence looks like in leadership, but how do you actually build it every day? So here are a few tools that have really helped me and my teams over the years. Firstly, prepare and then detached. Do your work, know your material, but once you walk into that room, let go of needing to be perfect. This is so hard and I struggled with it for years. Presence matters more than perfection. Second, reframe your fear as curiosity. When you feel that nervous energy, shift the question to, so what if I mess up? What can I learn here? That is the one mindset that changes everything. Finally, find an ally. Sometimes all it takes is one person, but you may have many who believe in you. One supportive voice in a tough room can completely change and posture your energy. I used to have a colleague at Estee Lauder who used to remind me before I went into the biggest of presentations with the global CEO, "Girl, you got this." That one short statement meant the world to me, and I thank her for it and will remember it for her for my entire career. Finally, keep a confidence log. Write down small wins each week: a meeting that went well, a moment that you spoke up, a challenge you handled better than the last time. Because confidence compounds like interest. The more you notice it, the faster it grows. And finally, confidence isn't a personality trait. It's a choice that you make every day to show up as yourself. When you choose intuition over intimidation, courage over comfort, you stop chasing validation and start building legacy. I've learned that the more authentic you are, the less imposter syndrome has a hold on you, because you're not pretending to be anyone else. You're just becoming more of who you really are. So, as we move into questions of this networking part of the session, I'll leave you with 2 questions. When was a time that you trusted yourself and it paid off? And what was one space in your career right now where you could show up a little bit bolder, a little bit more like yourself? Because that's where confidence really begins. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to the questions and having more of a conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jackie. That was incredible. I was personally looking forward to your session, and I think there's just so many takeaways, so many notes, so many tangible action items and next steps that can be implemented in this topic. So thank you for that. And thank you for sharing your story and your global experience with us. We are now going to move into the Q&A portion. So for our guests, please use the chat function to share your questions. And as always, we expect your questions to be relevant and respectful. As folks are typing in their questions, we did have some great ones come in with the registration form. And one of them in particular really stood out. Again, I know you shared lots of action items, but one of the things that really stood out was when you polled the audience, and 71% said occasionally experiencing imposter syndrome. That's quite a high number. And what you said about sitting in that imposter syndrome and even the changing the perspective, it's noticing it as growth and experiencing that and knowing that that's growth in your career, in your life, where you're moving, and sitting in that uncomfortability, but knowing that that's not a bad thing necessarily, and acknowledging that growth that's happening. And the question here is, do you have any advice for someone who doubts their own vision?
Do you have any advice towards someone who doubts their own vision? Yeah, and I mean, I love that question because it's so real. So here's the truth. If your vision doesn't scare you a little bit, it's probably not big enough. Doubt is actually the opposite of confidence, and it's part of it. Even the most original thinkers, I think, even if you think about Adam Grant or Indra Nooyi, had moments of uncertainty, I'm sure still today. The difference is they keep moving through it. So when I doubt my own vision, I think I go back to like 3 things. Like I re-ground myself in like the why. Why does this idea even matter? Who does it serve? And then like, what's my perspective? Like, you know, or seek a perspective from somebody else, because the feedback sharpens your idea, but you still have to own it. And I think take one small action. Kind of clarity comes from momentum, so not waiting until you're feeling kind of ready. So if you're doubting your vision, I think remind yourself your intuition got you there for a reason. Trust it enough and take the next step, and let confidence catch up.
Amazing. Thank you. Another one that we received in advance is, how do I handle being stuck as a contributor versus a leader? Oh, we lost your video.
Sorry,
That's
I
okay.
I wanted to make sure I had enough power to continue the conversation. So the question was, how can I handle being stuck as a contributor versus leader?
Yes.
Another good one, I've been there. It can be frustrating when you're ready to lead, but the title or opportunity hasn't caught up to you yet. My advice is lead from where you are. Leadership just isn't about a role. It's about influence. You can show up, or you can even show up showing leadership by mentoring others. Like, I mean, that's huge. Like, there's enough students that are 10 years behind your career or 3 years behind your career, or a sister or someone younger than you, that's always going to teach you something, so, or that you can teach something to, and you realize by mentoring others and contributing to others, or improving processes, or owning outcomes, or simply being the calm voice in a storm. Like, I feel like you can create some influence there, and also tackle some of your confidence in being a leader. I've promoted people before, not because of their title, but because they're already behaving like the leaders. So, like, you see the behavior, and then they're trusted, and they've been proactive, and they've been consistent, and then I've been able to promote them onto other roles. So I think if you're feeling stuck, focus on the behaviors, and not necessarily the badge, because when you embody leadership already, the role kind of finds you.
Great. And I appreciate what you're sharing around the mentorship piece, and any stage in your career, you can really be supporting as a mentor, because even if you're early in your career, there's so much insight that you have even just about entering the job market that can be so supportive to others that are navigating similar challenges. And at York, we have Connecting You, where individuals can make a platform, and we've made it very easy to sign up for mentorship on that platform as well. So I highly encourage checking that out. We also got a question in the chat. How do you confidently translate your thoughts into speech in high pressure situations?
How do you confidently translate your thoughts into speech and time? That's almost like I'm sitting there with my voice in my head, but I can't, like, necessarily express the ideas that are coming out of my mouth. I think I understand that. I don't know if someone necessarily wants to kind of. So let me answer the question, and whoever has asked that question, if they want to continue to ask a few more questions, I can help answer that. But if the ideas in your head, it should be coming out of your mouth. Like, are you afraid that you're not expressing your ideas confidently? Because I feel like it takes the confidence first to be able to express the idea. I feel like, no idea is a bad idea. Like, I really love hearing from voices in the room. And, like, if you want to, Indra Nui does a very interesting video on this too, because a good leader will actually make sure there's nothing fearful in a room to, not for that not to be a safe space. And I think leaders should be creating a space of psychological safety, so that your ideas can be heard. Her particular speech was, she noticed somebody who was eye rolling in a room one day, and she pointed him out, not to be rude to him, but it was to say, like, because if she didn't essentially address it in the room, or tried to address it later, she's teaching that person that it should be tolerated. For me as a leader, I've chosen the room. I have other leaders who have chosen who will be in the room. If they're in the room, they have a seat. Speak. It's fine. Like, and in your career, you're going to say so many things that, like, at one meeting where you thought you said the wrong thing, you're never going to remember it 10 years later anyways. And maybe it'll teach you something, again, like we spoke about earlier.
Amazing. Thank you. Okay, one more question. If there's any more in the chat, please feel free to write them in. And I have here, how do you tactfully challenge senior executives? So that could be either strategies that you've used yourself, or for individuals that maybe are trying to do this now. They're in a place in their career where they're needing to step up into this role. How would you encourage someone to do that for the very first time?
I think that's a really important question, whoever asked it. And it comes up a lot. And here's what I've learned, even for myself: senior leaders don't mind being challenged. In fact, and they don't mind being surprised. For me, nobody speaks in some of the meetings sometimes anymore. And I would love to be surprised by another idea in the room. Like, I have not got there into my career or at, like stages of my career because I know everything, So, I think the key is the preparation and the intent. So, before you challenge an idea, do your homework, know the data, understand the context, make sure your perspective is rooted in value, not ego. Like, don't be just challenging someone because it's like you want someone to notice you're in the room. Challenge it because you want to be part of the discussion, and you want to contribute value to whatever end goal of the topic is you're trying to challenge. I often say confidence is competence remembered under pressure. So when you come into that room prepared, calm, clear in your purpose, you can challenge with respect, and that earns trust, not tension. Anybody who's respected me I've learned I've had trust from, not tension. And finally, kind of choose curiosity over confrontation. Instead of like you need to choose your question and the way you frame it, rather than saying, I disagree with you, senior leader, whomever you're trying to like argue with. Maybe say, out of curiosity, I'm seeing something a little bit different. Can I share maybe why I think that? And that phrasing, or the phrasing of your question in a conversation, keeps it open and makes your voice part of the solution, not just noise.
Amazing. Love how practical and tactical that is. And one more comment, one more question in the chat. Loved your chat, super practical for your progressive career. Have you asked for those promotions, or were they given to you based off of your performance?
Oh, I don't take for granted career in a career. I mean, I opened with it. Like the net of my career was about resilience and a bunch of hard freaking work. You need to like be out there. You don't be brave, be asking for the question, be asking for a promotion for sure. If you think you're deserving of, and your skill sets are deserving of it, for sure. But again, be prepared to ask for the promotion if that's what you're deserving of. But make it part of the conversation. It's interesting at Estee Lauder and L'Oreal, they made it a very safe space. I mean, I always chose a bench in my team, someone to take over my job. That was really, a point that we encouraged. I knew who on my team wanted my job, and I was responsible for developing their skill sets to take it. And guess what? When I left Estee Lauder, that person who was my bench took my job and was very vocal about it. And I supported her taking my job because I had the next step that I wanted to pursue for myself. I had another leader at L'Oreal kind of asked me, we always have a path. You have to have a path. You're put in the system of HR of what your career path is. In L'Oreal, it's a very brave environment. You speak what you want to do next. You need to show what the 5-year path is going to be. So I would say, yes, for sure. I've asked for a promotion. Yes, I've asked for a job, because you can't expect people are going to think like for you. I mean, Sonia's on the phone with me moderating this, but if she wanted promotion, I would have just thought she's happy in her job unless she asked me that she wanted to accelerate more. And then my job is to support her career trajectory from there. Some people don't want the growth, so you don't take it for granted. It's not known unless you vocalize it, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. As a career coach, I always say that too. Individuals will book time and say, I want to be promoted, help me get promoted at my current work. And the first question I ask is, does your manager know that these are your desires? And
Yep.
oftentimes the answer is no. So task number one on their to-do list is make time in your manager's calendar to talk about career growth, career progression, and to get their thoughts, get their buy-in. So amazing, very, very practical again. Okay, thank you all for the questions in the chat. We are going to move on to the networking portion. Thank you again, Jackie, and to our audience members for such great questions. In a few moments, you'll be prompted to join a breakout room with 2 or to 3 other alumni. Our icebreaker questions, which Jackie did share, will be broadcasted to your room should you choose to use them. You'll have about 10 minutes to connect, and then you'll be invited back to the main room for our final remarks. reflections.
I think a lot of people dropped off. That was a long conversation, but we had a good conversation in our little world.
Yes, we did. These were great question prompts. Okay, a few more coming back. That's wonderful. Okay. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Hopefully you had a chance to connect and learn more about each other. Thank you again, Jackie, for joining us today and sharing some great insights and practical tips and actionable next steps for the group. That concludes our Mid-Career Conversations virtual event. Thank you all for attending, and we look forward to hosting you at our next session. If you are looking for more opportunities for growth, learning, and networking, we have an exciting event lineup scheduled for the next few weeks, including 2 insightful Scholars Hub sessions on muscle health and the quest for a great place to work. In addition, we are delighted to welcome you to York Circle's lecture series, held 4 times a year and open to our alumni community and friends. The event takes place at 9 a.m. on Saturday, November 15th. Additionally, tune in for the next session of Mid-Career Conversations on November 18th, and more information about that will be coming soon. For these events and more, visit yorku.ca/alumni and friends, and don't forget to update your information to reconnect and stay in touch. Thanks again, everyone, and take care.